Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to September 5th, 2024, Woodstock City Council. Sorry for the slight delay if you're watching at home. Gotta love technology. This hybrid meeting is being held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with Section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and Section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the Agendas, Meetings, and Minutes page of the city's website. And all councillors are in attendance, so we don't have anyone virtually tonight. And I am going to start off with a couple of proclamations, so I'm going to come down to the floor. This first proclamation is for big brothers and big sisters. Whereas Big Brothers Big Sisters of Oxford County play an integral role in creating and supporting caring, healthy, and positive role models for young people here in the city of Woodstock. And whereas for over 50 years have made it a priority to provide excellent mentors for young people, regardless of their age, gender, race, and religion. And whereas there is quantifiable proof that mentorship leads to measurable outcomes in social, emotional competence, mental health and well-being, and educational engagement and employment readiness. And whereas they realize they are making investment in the future of our community. And whereas they envision a community where all young people realize their full potential. And whereas they rely on the generosity and support of volunteers and donors to help them achieve their goals. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Accioni, Mayor of the City of Woodstock, do hereby proclaim September 24 as Big Brothers Big Sisters Month. Here in the City of Woodstock, dated this 5th day of September 2024 at Woodstock, Ontario. I encourage everyone to volunteer or donate by visiting www.bbbsoxford.ca and discover how you can be the spark that ignites the power and potential of a young person here in our community. Chris and Ralph is here, the Executive Director. I'd like to present this. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do. And of course, stay tuned. You will see more with the presentation shortly. The next proclamation is for rail safety. Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 23rd to the 29th, 2024. And whereas 229 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2023, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 39 avoidable serious injuries. And whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railway rights of way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. And whereas CN and Operation Lifesaver has requested City Council adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our own municipality. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Accioni, Mayor of the City of Woodstock, do hereby proclaim September 23 to 29, 2024 as Rail Safety Week. Here in the City of Woodstock, dated this 5th day of September 2024, here in Woodstock, Ontario. Thanks, everyone. Now we'll get to our agenda, of course. We did not have any closed session this afternoon. I'm going to ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interests. Seeing none. Disclosures of any new business. Seeing none, matters arising from the minutes. And now the minutes. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on August 15th, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. There's no additions to the agenda that I'm aware of. No presentations, but of course, as mentioned, we do have a delegation. So I'd like to welcome Kristen Rolfe, Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Oxford County, for raising awareness. Please come forward. And they have asked for 10 minutes for your presentation, so we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. Good afternoon, Mary Accioni, council members and staff. My name is Kristen Rolfe. I'm the Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Oxford County. I have been with the agency since 2010 and in this role since 2017. So I'm really excited to continue to share the good work that we're doing here in Woodstock and across Oxford County. Each September, we proudly celebrate Big Brothers Big Sisters Month. This is celebrated across the country, and September 18th is known as Big Brothers Big Sisters Day. Throughout the month, we're hoping that you will see Teal taking over Woodstock, helping to promote Big Brothers Big Sisters Month, celebrating the work that we do, and raising awareness for the increasing need of mentors here in Woodstock. For over a century, Big Brothers Big Sisters has been providing incredible supports to young people across the country, and in Woodstock, we have been doing so since 1969. Our vision is all young people realize their full potential, and our mission is to enable life-changing mentoring relationships to ignite the power and potential of young people. So as I was mentioning, we've been in Oxford County since 1969, in Woodstock for 55 years. We connect young people with mentors who help them realize their full potential. Honestly, our name, though it's very recognizable, does a disservice to us because we are far more than just Big Brothers Big Sisters or that nice, fluffy feeling that everybody gets when they hear about us. We are actually a need to have. We are an essential prevention and early intervention service for young people in Oxford County to reach them before their adversities become worse. So we are a social service agency, and many people don't realize that our caseworkers are professional caseworkers. So they have backgrounds in social work, social service work, and child and youth care. We are always working towards measurable outcomes. So specifically since 2019, we have been really data-driven in the work that we're doing here in Big Brothers Big Sisters. We look at the needs of each individual and unique child, and we make sure that the programs and the volunteers are directed to the unique child and their needs. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It is directly benefiting each individual child. Our programs are run at absolutely no cost to our families. They can take part in many activities, having exciting opportunities that they never would have had before, and they don't have to worry about cost being a barrier. We are subject to regular accreditation and quality assurance. So we always have people coming in, double checking that we are doing things properly, ensuring that our matches are safe, and that we are providing the necessary services for the kids here in Oxford County. Last year in 2023, we provided service to over 630 young people here in Oxford County through one-to-one and group mentoring. The major bulk of that would be here in Woodstock. This number includes one-to-one, where children and youth are matched one-to-one in a pair with a mentor, as well as group programs that support social competencies and connecting with peers. You've probably heard us talk about this, but last year we saw an incredible increase in requests for support. So over 200% increase in applications for service over the prior year. And just to give some perspective on what we're seeing, summer is usually traditionally a slower time for intakes for us. It's when families are busy doing other things and in camps. So we have actually received 24 applications for support this summer alone. We are seeing pandemic-induced impacts, so that's continuing to create more complex issues with our young people, specifically in mental health education and the social awareness piece or the social confidence. This means that our wait list is always increasing. Currently, we are at 149 young people waiting to be matched here in Oxford County. That number lies for Woodstock between 80 and 90. This doesn't include as well the number of kids that we serve and are waiting to participate in things like our school-based programs. In the past year, we saw the number fluctuate. So we did see a dip in our wait list at the beginning of the year, which was fantastic. However, it has plateaued. And with the number of applications coming in this month and over the summer, we're likely to see that number increase again. So how we do what we do. I am the first to say that we have the most incredible, dedicated, and strong team. They love what they do. They love supporting kids. They see the work we do every day making a difference. We're so fortunate to have the volunteers that we do. Though it's not necessarily hard work, it's incredible, impactful work that these volunteers are doing every day. And each volunteer is professionally screened and trained before they're connected with a youth. We are absolutely an agency that wouldn't exist without our volunteers, so we always want to thank them. Most are often surprised that we don't receive any ongoing government funding. So we have no annual core funding. Every dollar we spend, we have to raise. That includes paying for our staff, who, as I said, are professional caseworkers to ensure that our programs are running the way that they should. We receive government funding in terms of applications. So sometimes we'll receive Trillium funding or Ministry of Education funding. But our agency is one of very few social service agencies that don't receive core programming or core funding. Our funding comes from the wonderful folks at United Way Oxford, our fundraising events, sponsors, donors, and like I said, grants. So we're very thankful to the Community Grants Committee here in Woodstock for seeing the value of our work. Our biggest needs, I'm sure that anybody can guess, volunteer mentors and dollars. As we see, our services have increased 200%. Our volunteers have not increased 200%. While we have seen a great increase in volunteers, it's not keeping up to the level of enrollments that we're having with kids. We, as said before, because we don't receive any core funding, we have to raise every dollar that we spend. And because we don't charge anything to our families to take part in our programs, we aren't receiving any membership fees or anything like that as well. So what can Woodstock do? The biggest thing that we are asked by our mentees is, do I have a mentor yet? Do I have a big brother? Do I have a big sister? Can you imagine how difficult it is to say, not yet, but hopefully soon? By simply taking some time talking about big brothers, big sisters, spreading our message, highlighting the work we are doing in this community, encouraging folks to consider being a mentor, you can help us start to say yes to these kids. So a couple of testimonials. My son has experienced a lot of mistrust from male figures in his life. Trust isn't something that comes easy for him. His mentor has shown patience and built trust with my son. My son looks forward to every time his mentor comes and does whatever he can to prevent his mentor from leaving. And then a testimonial from a mentee. He's really kind and caring, a person who listens to people. He's been able to help me find some logic when my anxiety gets too much for me. And in terms of from a mentor, I can already see a lifelong friendship being built. So we don't talk as much about what volunteers get out of their relationships. And we find that it's just as flourishing, just as positive for the volunteers. I would also like to tell a quick story about one person who has come forward. It was actually when I first started as a caseworker, and I closed her match when she graduated at 18. And she has recently applied to be a member of our board of directors. And one of the things she said to me is she absolutely 100% believes that her mentor is why she is who she is today and why she is in the position to give back. Mentoring youth is more than just giving our time. It's an investment in the future of our community. The work that we do isn't just bettering the young people's lives, it's bettering the whole of our community. Together, we can create meaningful change for those who need it most. Join us in shaping a better future across Woodstock and Oxford County. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much for that. Any questions? Counselor Tate?
Through the chair, thank you very much. I think it's extremely important for youth to have a mentor. You do amazing work. Just a short thing, I have a close friend of mine that ended up had a policeman as his mentor, and they did have a lifelong relationship, and he helped him actually when he got older. So it is very rewarding. So anybody considering it should definitely get in touch with Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I guess my question would be for any potential people thinking about it, how many hours would you think would be average for somebody like weekly? And I think half the problem now is people are so busy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other important part, I think, so my dad used to be a big brother. So even if you have your own children, it's beneficial to have a child come into your home. So even though you have children, you can still be a big brother, big sister.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So just, how much time would it be for somebody to help one of these kids?
Absolutely. It's about a 1 to 4 hour commitment, depending on the program. So our community-based, like Big Brother, Big Sister program is usually between 2 and 4 hours a week. And exactly what you said, take them along with things that you're doing. Take them along to run errands. Those are life skills that are great for those kids to learn. Our school-based programs are about an hour a week. So it's not a huge commitment. If anybody is thinking about it, we do run a BIGS 101 course every month that you can learn about all of our programs and decide if it's right for you.
So just to follow up, and you guys do a great job of publicity. I just think enough people don't maybe understand it, but the way I was always explained, if you can just save one. So this one individual came from a terrible home, father left, da-da-da-da. He ended up to be a very successful businessman, and I don't think it would have happened without a mentor.
Exactly.
So the benefit that could be from the community or for that one person that comes forward would be phenomenal, just even for one.
Yep.
So thanks for all your work.
Thank you so much.
Counselor Leatherborough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your presentation. It's very disappointing and unfortunate to learn that you don't receive annualized funding. I found that very surprising. I did not know that. And I just wanted to touch on, Counselor Tate asked similar questions because I am often asked about, volunteer committee groups or board groups, things like that. So we'll certainly keep this in mind. But in terms of Oxford County, how does it work because we are such a rural area in transportation. Like Woodstock obviously has the highest number of needs currently, but if you're able just to elaborate some of the things you're seeing in some of our more rural area municipalities.
Absolutely. So we always try to make sure that there's no barriers to our services. So if kids need transportation, a lot of the times our volunteers are screened to be able to provide that transportation, or staff, or we will provide public transportation. We do see higher numbers, obviously, in the three largest communities, Tillsonburg, Ingersoll, and Woodstock. But we have a really good presence, and it's something that we have been focusing on this last year in getting into those smaller rural communities like Southwest Oxford, Drumbo, those kinds of places. I hope that answered your question.
Counselor Shanberg.
Thanks to the mayor through to our delegation. First of all, I believe that any kind of a fundraising event is kind of a double good news thing because you're gaining so much awareness as to what your cause is. But at the same time, you're getting lots of participation and maybe even finding volunteers from the same thing. Car shows, trivia night, play for kids' sake. But I know the one that's coming up soon is the big night out. If you can give us a plug for that, that would be nice.
Absolutely. If anybody has attended, and I know our wonderful mayor has, our Big Night Out charity ball, which is a Halloween bash, is very popular. It's a fun night of food, dancing, silent auction, music, kind of any sort of fun you can imagine for a gala. It is really popular for folks who like to dress up. We have many people who really go all out and are creative with their costumes. We have people who show up without costumes, and that's fine too, but we're finding more and more that people are really excited about dressing up. Where can you find an adult Halloween party nowadays, right?
It is a lot of fun, and just to that, we've done it as a family. All my brothers and sisters, we all get together and love to attend, so would encourage everyone to. It is a lot of fun. Yes, Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni, through you. Do you find that as an organization, you are, I don't want to say forced to, but you find yourself working in a silo, or are there a number of other organizations within the city and the county that you can collaborate with and partner with? For one, to help your dollars go further, help your volunteers go further. Is there opportunity there for more collaborations that if that could be facilitated, and what kind of organizations do you envision there could be some connections made with?
Absolutely. We work with a lot of organizations across Oxford County, Children's Aid Society, Welkin, youth serving organizations, because we do mentoring really well. And those organizations do other things really well. And we don't want to step on their toes, and they don't want to step on our toes. So we collaborate in many ways, like referrals. Sometimes we run programs with them, with the children and youth at their organizations. Sometimes we train their staff to run our programs. So we have wonderful connections with folks across the county, but we're always looking for more. So I think that there are so many people doing great work for children and youth in Oxford County, and it would be great to see us all together one day.
Counselor Lauder.
Thank you, and through the mayor to the delegate. I just wondered if you say there's 149 children waiting for mentors. What do you do to try and get the volunteers? How do you get your message out there that you need all of these?
Absolutely. So we do spend a lot of time sending out social media messages. We use traditional radio. In 2022, we were fortunate enough to get a Trillium grant to hire a volunteer recruitment and engagement coordinator. And she has been fantastic. So we've actually been able to keep her on since that grant has ended. And we have seen that increase in volunteer applications because she is there, because it's something we've always worked on off the side of our desks while we were trying to run our programs. But to have somebody dedicated who can go to businesses, who can set up at seniors' homes, who can set up at gyms and talk to people as they're coming in and out has been very beneficial for us.
Thank you. And since COVID, have you had a harder time getting volunteers? Because a lot of organizations now are having trouble with trying to keep going because just the volunteers are just not there.
Yeah, I would say from between 2020 and 2022, there was difficulty in getting new volunteers in the door, and we did lose volunteers during that time as well because COVID impacted adults as well as impacting kids. So we have seen that increase because we have somebody dedicated. So it's not necessarily as a concern for us as it was, but we still need more volunteers coming in.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work that you people do. So the children are in need of this. I know my granddaughter's a teacher, and I know what children are going through, and I hear about it. So thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, then let me be the fun one to say thank you so much. I know you have yourself, but an incredible team behind you that really does have that commitment for the youth here in our community and of course all of Oxford County. And I encourage you, if you're watching this at home, to mention it to your friends and family. If you've got an hour or so to spend or whatever you have, if you can't do the actual volunteer hours, please consider donating because they are such a great service here to the community and they are our future. So thank you very much for coming
Thank
today.
you for everyone.
And I encourage everyone to see the flag that we raised earlier today as well. So thank you. Looking for a motion on the floor? Councillor Leatherborough?
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the presentation from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Oxford County as information.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Lauder? Discussion? Or questions? Seeing none? Oh, sorry. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I didn't say anything during the presentation because it's no surprise that I do work at Big Brothers Big Sisters. But the team we have is only as good as they are because of your leader. And Kristen is a phenomenal executive director and leads an amazing team who has worked through a really difficult time of COVID when we had to figure out how do you reach young people who need us at the most desperate time. And the response was phenomenal on that. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the work that Kristen does and the rest of the team. We really do have a great team. I think I can brag about that a little bit, but your leader is what helps, and Kristen is a phenomenal leader of that team.
Well said. Anyone else? All those in favor? None opposed. That is unanimous. Next up is consideration of planning reports. I don't believe we have any, but we do have some consideration of correspondence. Looking for a motion? Councillor Tate?
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the request from the Woodstock Curling Center to post promotional signs for the Learn to Curl program for 2 weeks, commencing on September 20th, 2024, subject to staff approval.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Schanberg, discussion or questions? Well, I'll just simply state that I've had the pleasure to attend a couple of times the Learn to Curl there. Encourage everyone to get out, try it out. They get up to 100 people trying it out. So it's a lot of fun here in the community and always appreciate when organizations come forward as well for signage requests like this. So we're aware. And with that, all those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next up, 10B, Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council supports the resolution from the city of Quinte West calling on the federal government to provide a supplement to the allocations provided to municipalities under the AMO and CCBF agreement for 2024-2028 for the same amount that was allocated, effectively doubling the allocation for those years. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the city of Quinte West, the municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Honorable Christy Freeland, Deputy Minister, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, and the Honorable Arpan Khan, Oxford MP. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that? Counselor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion, Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. Like other municipalities, infrastructure is aging and in the need of upgrades and replacement. In speaking with Ms. Campbell, she provided me with the following information in support of this resolution. To date, the city has completed several asset management plans which indicate that Woodstock has an infrastructure funding gap. The housing needs analysis with respect to this funding is a new requirement. Our planning group has started work on completing the analysis. However, it is too early to comment on what the results may be. This resolution is calling for support from federal government to provide a supplement to the allocation provided to municipalities under the AMO Canada Community Building Fund. Through the mayor to Ms. Campbell, would you like to speak further to this resolution?
Your worship, through to the councillor's question, certainly the infrastructure funding gap is a real thing, and if we were to receive additional money, we would be very able to find projects that we could use that for. So I think given that there has been some precedent with this fund, that we've received top up in the past, that it certainly doesn't hurt to support a resolution requesting additional funds and see where it goes from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd just like to note some of the stats there where we've seen a 29% inflationary since 2020, but yet only at a 2% inflationary uptake every year. So obviously a huge gap missing there, and we'll continue to advocate the best we can in every avenue. And I thank Councillor Lauder for bringing this forward. Anyone else? With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. No staff presentations or mayor's report tonight. No councillor, or this afternoon, I'm sorry. No councillor reports, but we do have some department reports today. Administrative services, no, but we do have engineering. Transit route revision, Route 4 Northwest. Councillor Schattenberg.
Motion that Woodstock City Council approve the change to Woodstock Transit Route number 4 Northwest effective Tuesday, October the 15th, 2024.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Martin. Discussion or questions? Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, from the mayor, I guess a question through to the engineering office, the Route 4, north side of Piddock, but how much space are you gaining, or how much acreage are you so-called gaining, and how many more people are you reaching?
Your worship, through the councillor, we're extending the route about 850 meters. To be honest with you, I'm not sure in terms of acreage what that would turn out to be. But we've had a number of requests from that area as the development continues to grow over to the east. We've had a number of requests from the residents in that area to extend the bus service accordingly, and it also fits with our transit policy, of which we try to be within 400 meters of 90% of the residents.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment. I'm pleased to see that public transit is being used and this route extension, and just noting in the report that more than 3,600 boardings so far this year. So a good problem to have, and I live in the North End, and myself and my kids are always looking at the buses and they are full, so that is great.
Yes, and for those at home, I might add to that, the 3,600 is for one bus stop in particular, 4150 to be exact. And for those watching at home, what we're talking about is the bus stop moving. It's going to continue on east of Upper Thames, turning left on Queenston Boulevard, and then left again on Thompson Street. So it's only going to add less than 2 minutes but it's going to be accessible to a lot more of that community. So, and that's the idea of transit, of course, so certainly in favor of this, and thank staff for looking and seeing the need mid-year or part year as well. So anyone else? With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next up, 14B.2, replacement of municipal code, chapter 0232, fowl. Those are birds, not the smell. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Would like to pass a motion or, present a motion to defer this, bylaw application at this time, this bylaw motion at this time. I'm hoping that, Mr. Miller is here as well, maybe to speak to, oh, there, okay. I thought I saw you come in earlier, but I didn't see you. To speak to potentially looking at an exemption added to this bylaw. I can speak to that a little bit more if I'm able to pass the motion for this to be deferred.
Councillor Tate was going to second that.
Um,
Discussion? Yes.
So the reason I'm looking at asking for this deferral and speaking to an exemption is in relation to pigeon racing. There is one resident who I've been speaking to quite a bit this past week, somebody that I've known for a very long time, and I know their family's been doing this hobby for over 40 years. But here in Woodstock, he and his wife have been doing this since 2003. They are following the current bylaws, and they have the following all of the policies and such now, but with this new restriction, they face having to go down to only having 10 pigeons. Currently, they are able to have 40 year-round and 60 during the months of April until October. And in looking around at some other municipalities, I did find that a lot of municipalities that do have the restrictions in order have an exemption if you are registered with the Canadian Racing Pigeon Union or Canadian Racing Pigeon Group. They have to be banded. There's obviously things that they have to follow as well. But I'm not sure if Mr. Miller is able to speak to this, if this is something that we can explore, looking at adding an exemption in for folks that are a part of this. Part of their concern is as well that this is a group that went from 1,500 plus memberships. They're barely getting to 800, and they are fearful that if these restrictions come in of only allowing 10 pigeons, that they're going to lose more folks and not have more people getting involved. So I'm not sure if Mr. Miller is able to come maybe and speak to this a little bit of what an exemption could potentially look like and what you may have found in your time of putting this together.
So does council have any objection with Mr. Miller coming forward? See any? By staff member, of course. Yes. So thank you and welcome for being here.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. In the research that was conducted, livestock and in general, fowl and similar types of livestock were referenced. I didn't find any specific exemptions related to pigeons. I can look at that in greater detail. The concern with respect to exemption is that the proposed regulations were put in place to deal with adverse impacts to adjacent properties, and the number of animals certainly in the research that was conducted would potentially cause issues related to adverse impacts, given the number of animals on a particular property and setbacks as well.
Any questions, Mr. Miller? Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Through the chair to Mr. Miller. So just looking at, there were a few that I found, and I can share what I did find. I do apologize to Mr. Miller. I'm really throwing this on him because this only kind of came to light earlier today that I got some more information. So I can share what I did find and also what's been shared to me by this individual, this constituent who's been sharing this information. But there was a report that came to Toronto Council in 2017 that broke down. Now, these are larger municipalities, you know, speaking like Vaughan and London and Brampton and so on. And they broke down a lot of, it was specific to pigeons as well, because this was a similar concern of the Canadian racing group. So I can share that with you as well, but it really did break down who allowed it and why they allowed it and what the restrictions look like, and how that all kind of laid out for them. But I will agree that it was hard to find a lot of information. You probably have much more knowledge on how to find that than I do. But in what I did find, there were exemptions that I was finding that did allow for the Canadian pigeon, racing pigeons to be exempted. They have to be banded, and there's certain obviously rules that they are following. But I see the concerns of this constituent particularly, but also to the Canadian Racing Pigeon Union that this individual's been a part of for over 10 years. And this is something that they're advocating to other municipalities. It's not just here unique to Woodstock.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Leatherborough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is a direct question, but when we're talking about exemptions, thanks to Councillor Wismer Van Meer for bringing this up. I am still a little concerned that when we make an exemption for one, there needs to be more exemptions made for others. I was under the impression that it's still going to be on a complaint basis. I know through the summer, I had 2 calls from a resident that was very concerned with odors in the surrounding neighborhood, certainly given the temperature. So I'm just kind of, again, I don't know if there's a question here, but I'm just wondering if we want to defer for a specific exemption, or if that could just come to council at a later time on a case-by-case basis. And in fact, that this is still going to be on a complaint basis, because obviously this came to us with a concerned neighborhood. So I'm just trying to navigate how to not make this more complicated, but also on that focus of a case-by-case basis, such as this one.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It should be noted that enforcement will be on a complaint basis exclusively. It's not the intent for officers to go out and look for these types of issues. So when officers would have occasion to action a particular violation, it would be only on complaint, and then they would apply the provisions of the bylaw with a strong emphasis on voluntary compliance through education and working with residents on a case-by-case basis to determine what reasonable time frames for compliance might look like. If that helps answer the question.
If I can just continue then to my council mate, Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Did this resident indicate to you in your findings that they were having complaints in their surrounding neighborhood, or they're just trying to be proactive that nothing changes? And I guess I just want to know your thoughts based on what was just shared.
Through the chair to Councillor Leatherbarrow. So this individual has had, as far as he knows, no complaints at all. They have been in this residence since 2002, and they have never had the city or bylaw approach them. Their concern is neighbors change, you never know what could happen. And it also does restrict people from getting involved in this hobby and in this livelihood for some folks. So I think that's where their concern is coming from, is that when a bylaw is put in that restricts you from being able to do something, bringing new residents in that might have this hobby already, obviously they're not going to be able to come in, or it's going to be deterrent for folks to either come to this area or get involved in it. So that it's more, I mean, it's kind of a two-sided thing, I think, for them. And I think there is some fear and frustrations and uncertainty for them. If somebody moves in beside you and for whatever reason, it's like, I hate pigeons, or despite whatever effort you've done to make it clean and non-odor issues and going through all of the previous bylaw requirements, I think their concern is if somebody does have a complaint eventually to them, they have no control over what happens. And if all of a sudden they're told, sorry, this is what the bylaw requires, what's their step after that? So I think it's a lot of unknown and uncertainty. And I respect what Mr. Miller's saying. It's got to be a case-by-case basis. You can't just make this a blanket answer to all of them. But I think it's that uncertainty for folks that have been so involved in this for so long that that's where their fear is coming from.
Thank you. Counselor Tate?
Through the chair to Mr. Miller. So if we did a deferral, how long would it take you to bring it back? It wouldn't take long to bring back to council, I assume, with the concerns that counselor has.
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. I could probably turn this around and I want to have a look at these municipalities and see what specific provisions apply. GTA, just for reference, GTA municipalities were not, I don't believe, included in the interjurisdictional review. So I would definitely like to have a look at those and see what kind of framework is in place. Again, my preference is to, from a regulatory perspective, is to mitigate as much as possible adverse impact to neighboring properties, and the concern related to new people moving in and stuff, that could be an issue, and it was contemplated in terms of, you know, what's okay for some might not be okay for all, and the bylaw is a good regulatory instrument to address those kind of issues.
Okay. Counselor Schanberg?
Maybe just as a point of clarification, just so we know for sure and people watching understand this, that they may have missed it in the report, for example, there is no such thing as grandfathering for a bylaw like this, is there?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. Generally speaking, grandfathering is only a term which typically applies to land use planning or zoning type things, not new regulations that are imposed. Typically, when new regulations get imposed, as proposed, everyone's required to comply. We as bylaw enforcement work with residents to determine reasonable timeframes for compliance, with a strong emphasis on voluntary compliance. But yeah, generally speaking, we have leeway in terms of the investigative procedures, how we intend to action, for example, proactive versus reactive. In this case, we would only be undertaking reactive enforcement on a complaint basis.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Leatherborough?
Mine'll just be a comment. I'm just still unsure as to how deferring it to find a way for this individual, because I believe they could still come to council and asking for an exemption. And that's what I'm just a little bit clouded on, is that we've also been at this for a few months. Like, this has been to council, I think this is the third time. So yeah, I'm just a little clouded, as I said, about how we got to an exemption, because it sounds like the bylaw that's before us right now will still approach it on a complaint basis, but also education and still addressing new neighbors, what have you. So I'm just not really clear on what a deferral would get to us when, like, there's still options if this bylaw passes now.
Thank you. I guess I've been reached out by a couple of residents as well, and I know for a fact the one that Councillor Wismer Van Meer's discussion I've spoken to as well. I do think I share a lot of concerns with the residents or residences that are in an established club, been doing this for many years. I can see their concerns, especially when it comes to apparently down to the 10 birds concerns for racing and the way that works in that world. I've learned a lot more about pigeons this past week than I have in my lifetime. So in all fairness, I think taking the extra little bit of time, be it a few weeks at this point, for an established club, we're not talking about, you know, a random people or random neighbors with chickens at this point, I think would be beneficial personally. And I thank the residents for coming forward, because again, I didn't even know that world existed to the extent it does. It's quite interesting, actually. So thank you, Mr. Miller, if you're willing to take the time and just look into it to be sure. But Councillor Lauder? Sure.
I agree also with the deferral because I know this is something that's very near and dear to people, and to say they could only have 10 birds, and then in the letter they explained they would have to have 10 of their old birds, and they're not bringing on new birds, and it is a concern for them. I know actually one of our previous staff here. Her husband had the birds. This wasn't here in Woodstock, but in Innerkip. But they're very sure on keeping their pens clear. And I just think that maybe just the deferral would give us some better feeling on this. And so I would agree with this motion.
Thank you. Counselor Tate.
Through the chair, yeah, I'll support the deferral too. And I know it's been at council a couple of times, but the public is not always aware what we're doing. And I think we're all aware of that. The public just doesn't know sometimes what's going on. And I think that the bylaw has just come out, so now they've seen the particulars. So I think that makes a difference too. So yes, I fully appreciate, and I'm glad they've reached out to some of the counselors.
Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
I just wanted to add on to what Councillor Tate said as well, that this individual, I've been speaking to this individual since it first was brought to council, and they have been following it very closely. And in their defense, they didn't see the bylaw until Tuesday. So they weren't aware of what was going to happen, and neither did we. So I think that's where I'm coming from. And I understand what Councillor Leatherbarrow was saying, like deferring it doesn't always necessarily mean we're going to get an answer. Like that's not always the answer to getting, or the way to get to every answer. But in this case, we didn't know what was necessarily going to come. And this came to me as a fairly valid, I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I love animals. So the fact of somebody who's having to get rid of animals that's one thing, but this is a group, an organized group that represents nationally. And I think that it's worth at least looking at it for them.
Thank you. Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni, through you. Just a point of clarification, fowl is fowl. It doesn't matter if it's a pigeon or a 40-pound turkey, it's still a fowl? They're all equal?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. There's actually a specific definition in the proposed bylaw that refers to it now as avian livestock. And if you want, I can read the definition if it pleases council. Shall mean non-domestic birds without limiting the generality of the foregoing. It includes chickens, pigeons, ducks, turkeys, but shall not include farm livestock, small livestock. Any exotic animals is defined under Chapter 224 of the Municipal Code. Animals governed under the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act or the animals governed by the Migratory Birds Act. So there's some tiebacks to provincial legislation and types of birds that are separately regulated, but generally all manner of typically what we consider like farm birds.
Thank you. Anyone else? So just to be clear, we've got a motion on the floor to defer this until a future time that Mr. Miller and his team can bring it forward. Sure. Okay. Thank you. So there was some wording here put forward, and I'm going to ask Councillor Wismer Van Meer to make sure this is what she intends. Do you want to read it yourself? Do you have it there?
I do, thank you.
Please.
So I move that Woodstock City Council defer the report regarding replacement of Municipal Code Chapter 0232 fowl in order to consider options for exemptions with respect to racing pigeons.
And the seconder on that is okay? Councillor Tate? All right. Any further discussion before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed. So that is deferred. So thank you very much to you and your team.
Thank you.
Look forward to having you come forward.
Thank you.
And again, thank you to the residents that did reach out. Next up, we have 14B.3 CN Rail Pedestrian Bridge. Or better known as Finkel Street Pedestrian Bridge. Councillor Lauder?
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor to submit a letter on behalf of Woodstock City Council urging CN Rail to take immediate action to replace the Finkel Street pedestrian bridge crossing.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Tate. Discussion or questions? Councillor Lauder?
I'm certainly supporting this resolution. We have waited too many years with promises from CN that never seemed to materialize to have this bridge replaced. It was such a convenient way for, I know that at one time we lived south of that bridge, and it was lots of times we walked uptown and over the bridge, and it was well used by people anywhere, people up from the north side part of town if they wanted to walk down to Southside Park. So I think that's really important, and I know a lot of people have been asking, when is this ever going to be fixed? And I know they blame the city, and it's not the city's fault. So this is a good time to send this off to the CN. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Leatherborough?
I support this as well, and just noting from the report that it said 2013 and 2015, the condition of the bridge was poor. And then it was closed since 2021, talks of replacement spring 2023, and then spring 2024 project put on hold. And we do have a couple of the Woodstock Accessibility Advisory Committee members in the gallery today too. And I know that this was one of our first action items, was to get that bridge back up to code and accessible. So I did forward this report to the Accessibility Committee, and I'm happy they're here to see that this is important, and I hope it speeds things along.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Just a general comment as well. I had some parents actually reach out over the last year about the bridge because they have young folks that attend WCI, and some of them work at Southside Aquatics and such, or they're heading their way down to the complex, and they're having to walk all the way around down to Henry and kind of going out onto the Wellington Bridge and such. So there's been questions about when this would be done, not realizing it was not a city bridge that had to be attended to. So I think that they will also appreciate hearing that this is getting a bit of a nudge from us.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I did some thinking about this week, and the task you have of writing a letter. Obviously, CN is, I would think that they're going to want to see us demonstrate the need. And I'm curious what data you have at your disposal to justify the request for them to spend what I assume is a significant amount of money to upgrade the bridge. And I did reach out to the engineer, to Mr. DeHaan, earlier this week. Do we have any data? Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of statistics on the previous usage before it was closed. And so I'm curious, how do you envision going after this request? Because we know that to spend millions of dollars, we have to justify the need. And is there a way that we can gather anecdotal data for you to utilize in a letter that would be helpful to you?
Well, thank you for that. It's, I've been advocating for this ever since I've been in this seat. Every opportunity I can, speaking with CN, usually they're calling us for something and we're complaining about a bridge being needed, or of course, railway crossings to be fixed in our roadways. So this has been an ongoing battle, and we thought we'd be a little bit more official with a letter on behalf of City Council, especially with them coming forward, asking for our support in Rail Safety Week. So we thought this might be a perfect opportunity. We're certainly going to use whatever data we have. I don't have that here in front of me right now, but with all of staff and our communications department, I'm quite sure we'll put something together and we'll forward that off to all of council as before we send it out. So, but if you think of anything in the meantime you'd like to mention in particular, please forward it through. So I'm sure we'll get this done in the next short little bit. Any other questions or comments? In that case, all those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Nothing from cultural services tonight, but we do have parks and recreation. So 14D.1, funding for encampment cleanups. Looking for a motion on the floor. Councillor Leatherborough?
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council provide an additional $100,000 to be financed from the Community and Social Wellbeing Reserve Fund for Parks Cleanup Purchase Service Account 0701-83125-0393, And further, that a copy of this report be forwarded to the Oxford Safe and Well Committee for information, as well as the following representatives at Queen's Park: the Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MP, the Honorable Michael Tibolo, Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, the Honorable Michael Kersner, MPP, and Minister of the Solicitor General, the Honorable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Martin. Discussion? Councillor Leatherborough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have mixed feelings about this report. It's something that I'm concerned about for our community with encampments. It's looking a lot worse, not a lot better in the city of Woodstock and in other municipalities. When I saw that the suggestion was to pull from a different reserve, I felt that it was important that it was pulled from the mayor's task force. This was struck in 2023, $150,000 allocated annually, topped up every year from the OLG Reserve Fund. And last year, the encampment response was created. I think that there is still continuously really important work that's happening. I do think this specific encampment identified in the report is hopefully a one-off, but I still think that we have a long road ahead of us. And whether it's at future meetings or future budgets, I do hope that we can consider, again, an in-house encampment response to do the very best mitigation we possibly can and to give staff the tools to do so. I would be comfortable sticking with an encampment response for the remainder of this term, but I know the task force is trying to take a different direction, and Mayor Accioni, obviously I support your leadership on that. So I do think this money needs to come from this pot. I do think we need to keep our finger on the pulse because encampments are getting worse. The additional wording for this to be circulated to the powers that be, recommended by Councilor Martin, I think is really important. I am personally in the business of coffee, but if I was using that same method, I would send this invoice to the provincial government. It is outdated and we should be charging interest. And I think that anything that we do going forward related to this needs to be accounted for and sent to the powers that be. And furthermore, the line of Oxford Safe and Well, I believe the warden, Marcus Ryan, said that this Safe and Well committee and plan is every municipality's plan. And I would also like Oxford Safe and Well to consider that the city of Woodstock should expect more money, again, from another stream, preferably through the county of Oxford, because Woodstock's taxpayers cannot continuously take this on by ourselves. So I'm very concerned. I hope everyone supports the reasoning behind pulling this money from this pot, and I hope that we can keep our finger on the pulse with this.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. As the seconder to the motion, I wanted to comment that there's some amazing data and statistics in this report. And I do believe that it has value in forwarding it up to the provincial level, because I feel like some of the underfunding that we're seeing so many of our agencies and organizations just not getting enough and are running in deficits, leading to some of these the development of encampments. And so I think moving it up we've just come back from AMO 2 weeks ago, and multiple delegations, some with some of the ministers mentioned here. And the number of times during the delegations I participated in where I heard the comment, I didn't know that. I didn't know this was the repercussion of X. I think that this report, forwarding it up to Safe and Well for their advocacy, as well as to the province, puts this on the radar that this is the impact. One cleanup, $100,000. This is the impact of underfunding, and this is the result that our municipal residents have to shoulder this cost because of a shortfall from the province. And so that was my thinking in adding this wording to the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder?
Thank you. I support this motion, and I thank Councillor Leatherborough for bringing it forward. Last year, when the mayor's task force was established and the funds were set up, my understanding it was for the defraying costs related to the encampments if required. This year, when it was in the line in the budget, I thought it was there for the same reason. As the report indicates, there are 44 known encampments, either active or abandoned. Last evening, I spoke to a lady who has been dealing with an encampment issues for the past year and a half. She is at the point of having to feel that she has to sell her home because of the never-ending issues. She can no longer enjoy her outdoor amenities with what is happening so close to her home. The other night, there was a fire in the area just across the fence from her, and it was very frightening for her. And these issues are not going away anytime soon. So one option in the report suggests pausing encampment cleanup for the remainder of this year. This would not be the answer to this growing problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I went down to the south end of Clark Street to be able to talk to the CN folks and the contractor that was cleaning it up. And I wasn't going down there to sort of get in the way. I just went down to talk to them, just show that the council was most certainly concerned with the work. And I think people have to thank the Parks Department, for example, whether it be Brian Connors or Rita Horan, who's here today, or Grant Drygas for the work they've been doing. And I think above and beyond also, even for some of the smaller encampments we've had in the city of Woodstock, I think Councillor Tate deserves a pat on the back for really sticking to it and going forward and pushing on some of these cleanups to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, I support that the motion where the money's coming from, and I just have another take. Yes, we can send it up to the province. I'm not sure what funding we're looking for. Going to other municipalities and talking to other municipalities and see what they're doing. I think that we have to look inward. Municipalities have to look inward to how they're dealing with encampments. To me, they've gotten out of hand way too fast and gotten to the point where the cost is absolutely out of control. So the one I'm dealing with, it's been on since last year. So in my mind, that is unacceptable. And I think the city shoulders some of the blame. And I think we have to be more proactive in whether it's bylaws or regulations to help the rest of the taxpayers, because they're the ones who are paying for all of this and having to burn this. So I don't know what we're going to expect from the different levels of government, but I think the municipalities have to look inward and for changes. I know I talked to a couple and they've got no camping on public or their city property. So I think there needs to be some changes, how fast it happens or if there's an appetite, but it is getting out of control and we are actually getting known in different communities about how bad we are. And that is not a name that I want for Woodstock. So I will, I think this is the perfect place for this money to come from. Thanks.
Councillor Leatherborough.
Just to add on to that through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it was last week, the city of Guelph had a special meeting of council that was 7.5 hours. They tabled a motion in February and then deferred it. And then it was decided in this meeting and it was a public usage space bylaw. And I had spoken with City of Woodstock senior staff about it, but in terms of looking inward, the city of Guelph is one of the most progressive cities, in my opinion, and they have as many inward encampment responses, MHART clinicians, you can name it, welcoming walking streets, which is peer support in their downtown. And I believe that that is exactly what we need to do before we start passing those bylaws or before we invite them in. Because as I said at the beginning of this motion, yes, the money is certainly hopefully the consensus, but there's a deeper conversation to be had where whether it was last budget or future budgets, that we need to continue to support residents living in encampments to look after, you know, a stewardship lens, look after property, and then look after residents as well that are bumping up against these spaces. So I totally agree of being more proactive and seeing the city of Guelph go through that and make those tough decisions. I think they had 75 delegations. And I think from best practice, we don't want the city of Woodstock to have another special meeting of council where people are pitted against each other. We want to be as proactive as possible, advocate for more money from maybe the County of Oxford, maybe the provincial government, maybe the federal government, but we also want to, I think, support an in-house encampment response sooner rather than later, so we don't see another situation like Clark Street back at our desk, acquiring maybe even more than $100,000.
Thank you. And, oh, Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Through the chair, just a general comment. I agree with the money coming from where this is, where Councilor Leatherbarrow has mentioned. It's September. Being one of the members of that task force, money hasn't been allocated to anything at this point. And I'd rather see it going to something that we know is a need. Obviously, it's a need that's been exhausted, rather than just push things through to get that money spent on something. This is something that's happening and something that needs to be addressed, and they need the support of financially. So 100% I support the funding coming from there. For this very reason that Councilor Leatherbarrow has already mentioned. This is part of the reason why it was created. And as much as we have been discussing to try to move into other avenues and seeing other areas we could be utilizing those funds, like I said, I don't want to just push the money out to say we spent it when we have something that's in front of our face that needs support.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I just wanted to give a quick response to Councillor Tate's comments about what do we ask for the province. I think that a report like this demonstrates very clearly the need for services in our community. The province announced the implementation of heart hubs, for example, with a focus on 10 being set up throughout the province. This is the data and this is the type of report that justifies why a heart hub and why mental health and addiction treatment belongs in Woodstock. There will be funding, it will go out, but if we don't fight for our share of the funding and demonstrate the need, it won't come to us. It'll go somewhere else. And so I would like to be proactive on fighting for treatment services, on fighting for housing funds, on funding for organizations that deal with youth who are unfortunately ending up in encampments. So that's my justification for suggesting to the province that this is demonstrating our need, so that when funding envelopes open, we're there ready to implement on programs that are a joint priority with the province.
Thank you. Counselor Tate?
Through the worship, I'm well aware how the funding works, and I also know that when you send the letter, it's gonna sit there. The only way you get your piece of the pie is you have to present a actual game plan, and then you got everybody on board. So I'm not saying we shouldn't ask, but we know that every single municipality in basically North America is dealing with the same issue. So that's why I think we need to look inward, and then you get a game plan, you send that to the province, you have actual facts, statistics, what you want them to do for you. So I'm not saying that we don't ask, but I know talking to the province, you have to have concrete, a definite plan to send them, and that's how you get your funding. And I think we're already on their radar because we've been very proactive on the different areas. And I think the mayor has a very good relationship with those in the province, which is beneficial. I think that's the most important part, is the relationship with the head of council to the different ministers. So I think it's going in the right direction that way.
Yes, thank you. We've, for those watching at home, we have had the Honorable Michael Tobolo here, Minister of Mental Health and Addictions here. And just last week, actually, we had the Honorable Michael Kersner, who's the Minister of Solicitor General here within our city. So we are on their radar. They know our concerns. They hear it on a very regular basis. Met with Minister Calandra's staff just a couple of weeks ago in Ottawa. We will continue to advocate everywhere we can. This is a need. How we get this done isn't as important in my opinion. What pot it comes from is not as important in my opinion. I do have a slightly different thought of the social well-being that I think we'd like to use that for other things. I think we've recognized encampments as a huge need, a bigger need than I think anyone anticipated, let's be clear. Now that you could be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, I think an in-house encampment response should be a priority of ours. again, my opinion, we'll look at that come budgetary times. But right now, it needs to be done. We can't ignore, for those that read so we've got 23 active sites right now. 8 of them need to be cleaned up. Not all like Clark Street, don't get me wrong, but there's still many cleanups to be done. And I clearly want to say thank you to Rita and Grant and all of staff. The workload this must be put on is incredible, because of course this was, on the side of your desk at one point. Now it's got to be being pretty daunting and a big part of your desk. And I want to thank you for doing what you can with the minimal resources you have. But I think we've got to consider this being a permanent part of the city of Woodstock going forward for the reasons that Councillor Leatherborough and Councillor Tate mentioned, that it's not going away anytime soon. We do have to look in-house, and we do have to do something about this. And I do ask the province for their help, as well as the county. So, and with that, final chance, any other comments or questions? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Nothing from economic development today, but we do have clerks. So of course, 14F.1, alternate forms of voting methods for the 2026 municipal and school board election. Looking for a motion on the floor. Wow, not everybody right away. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council support option. Oh, I should have had this in front of me and I accidentally scrolled down. My apologies, 1 second. Support option 2 and 3 as the vote casting method for the 2026 municipal and board election, and further the staff be directed to prepare a report outlining the proposed election details and budget.
So for those watching at home, just for clarity wise, even for myself, that is an online and hybrid method, correct? That is your intention? Okay. Is there a seconder on that motion? Councillor Martin. Discussion? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
The reason that I have asked, I did have conversations with staff this week, so I appreciate their time in helping me kind of work my way through this. We know what option 1 is looking at. It's status quo, adding curbside voting or vote by mail on demand. The reason I would like to look at option 2, online election, or a hybrid election, which is option 3, is to see what the comparison between these two and what it could look like for us. I definitely think it's time for us to move out of status quo. We had some numbers given to us by community members showing what other municipalities within Oxford County are doing. We are one of 2 that are doing the in-person. The online as well as phone options are becoming more popular. I think that by getting this report, we're not making the decision of how this election is looking. We're simply looking for information to make the best choice for the next 2026 election. Staff was able to kind of throw some, or give me some stats that could, now mind you, they are older stats going back close to 10 years. But at that time, there was a high number, or the highest response from that survey was an online or going towards an online option for voting. So as much as that information is older data, I don't think that that's changing. Our life is very much an online platform. We do our banking online, and so much of our life is going that direction. So I think having that availability to folks is worth looking at. But like I said, I want to see what these both look like before a decision is made. And to me, I just think it's time to look past what we've been doing for the past number of years.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Leatherborough.
Well, sorry. Through your worship, yes, absolutely support this motion. Just a point of clarification maybe to Madam Clerk. I was looking at option 3, hybrid election, paper ballot and online voting. We're obviously now looking at option 2 and 3. So I guess this is just more options, for lack of a better word. If you could just clarify that there'll be three separate sort of what the scope and the price would. I was so fixated on option three that I didn't think of option two. So just, those will be separate reports, I assume, with the cost.
Yes, your worship, through to Councillor Leatherbarrow. With the motion that's on the floor, what we would present back to council would be ultimately what an online only ballot would look like. How that might unfold, what polling locations we would suggest we would keep, et cetera, and what a proposed budget might be. And then there would be an additional option of hybrid and what it would look like to implement both an online and a paper ballot at the same time, and what that might look like with some proposed details for the administration, as well as a potential cost of that as well. So we would present the options separately.
Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, from the mayor through to our clerk as well. Is there a specific date or a timeline that we either have to announce to the province or somebody else that the specific method we are going to use in our municipal election?
Thank you, your worship, through to Councillor Schattenberg. The Municipal Elections Act does require us to pass a bylaw in order to move forward with any alternative forms of voting, including vote tabulators. So we do have until early 2026 to do that. However, with respect to the administration of the election, there's a number of things we would need to do to prepare for that. We'd need to go to RFP to find vendors and et cetera. So we'd be looking for that guidance ahead of that, but we certainly have some time.
As a follow-up, if option two ends up being the direction we go, what does that mean therefore picture-wise for retirement homes and other people such as that may have maybe lack of a contact to the internet?
Thank you, your worship, through to Councillor Schattenberg, not to take any thunder away from the deputy clerk here, but if she doesn't mind, I'd be happy to answer that question. The Municipal Elections Act does require us to rove to retirement homes and nursing homes. Retirement homes with 50 residents or more in that specific case. So regardless of how voters cast a ballot, that does not change. So if we were to go to a 100% online election where there's no paper ballot, we would still rove to those retirement homes, but we would arrive with laptops, iPads, things like that in order to assist those voters in casting their ballot. As sworn election officials, any election staff member can assist in the casting of a ballot. What it would allow us to do would be to go there multiple times perhaps. So we could likely go through an advanced polling stage as well to walk some people through it. And we are required to be there on election day as well. But because it's the first time we'd be looking at an online ballot, we would likely go more than once to each location.
Maybe just a statement. I did notice in the last election, there was 51 Ontario municipalities that had computer overload problems. And I'm not saying technology hasn't improved in the last 4 years. It likely has, or maybe there's more programs available than there was previously. But in the city of Kingston, they had to add time to vote because of the fact that there was an overload on the computer system. And a Woolwich, which is Elmira and St. Jacobs, their computer system timed out twice. So I would hate to think that I'm sitting at my computer at 6:30 at night after I'm done work, trying to get my vote in, and I'm thinking, did that go through or did that not go through? And I'm sure you could sort of see on your screen that it timed out on you. But again, did it go through or not go through?
Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, I'll support the motion because it's just for a report to come back, and I'll save my comments for the different ways that we can vote once that report comes back. So we'll have the, in the report, it will have the cost for the different methods also, I assume. Yep, okay. Yeah, so I'll save my comments from when that actual report comes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lauder.
I too will save my any comments until we get the report back, and because I am interested in seeing a hybrid model or whatever might come back, and we see that it is something that we can live with. So I'll wait till then for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Sorry, I'm just gonna ask if I can to Ms. Humphries, because we did have discussed this this week, but I'm just wanting to clarify if that would be, this would be included on election day, having polls available if we did online, if we did go that direction. Does that show up in the report as well? Like that would all be included? So folks would have a brick and mortar place to go and vote. It would be electronically, but they do have a place to go if that's their comfort level.
Your worship, through to Councillor Wismer Van Meer, yes, the deputy clerk and I have discussed this, what administration of a fully online election would look like, and that would be outlined in the report. But our recommendation would be, especially for the first one, if there was no paper ballot, to maintain physical voting locations. Perhaps we don't need 5 super polls as we've had in previous elections, but there would still be a brick and mortar location to go to as per our recommendation. And again, there would be iPads or laptops there in order for people to receive assistance to cast those ballots.
Councillor Tate?
Sorry, through the chair, and I meant to say this at the beginning, I'd like to thank the deputy clerk for her report. It was very in-depth, and everything that I've read and researched had the same outcome as yours, so thank you very much for doing the report.
Anyone else? I'd also like to say thank you to our clerk's department for sure. This is something I think does need updating myself as somebody that has put it forward a few times over the years. But encouraging to at least see the information, the costing, and what that could look like for a future debate, to be clear. For anybody watching, we're not talking about exactly today how that's going to be done, but we want to see those options so we can vote on that. So with that, I'll call the vote if no other comments or questions. All those in favor? That is passed. Options 2 and 3 to come forward, so thank you. Nothing from the CIO's office, or we do have human resources. Of course, our fire services. 14I.1. Councillor Tate?
I'll make the motion that Woodstock City Council approve the increase of minimum staffing within the Woodstock Fire Department Suppression Division from 9 to 10, effective September 9th, 2024.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion? Councillor Tate?
Through the chair, I've had some discussions with some of the people from the fire department. I'm glad to see this come forward. And also I was able to meet your newest recruits at Woodstock Days, and it looks like a really good young group of people. And I've heard really positive from some of your officers. So looking forward to that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Fire chief is here if there is a question. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. Come on up, Chief Slager. My question is around, so the report indicates that there's no financial implication to move from 8 to 9 to 10, which we're going to 10 in this report. My question is a little bit hypothetical. And I mentioned before the meeting that I had a conversation with the Association of Fire Chiefs when we were at AMO, just an offhanded conversation in the hallway. And they indicated that just like police, just like paramedics, we're seeing an increased number of firefighters dealing with short-term and long-term stress leaves, PTSD, and so on. Would a future hypothetical increase in that number for us here in Woodstock cause a financial impact to your service if we move from 9 to 10, or we're good?
Your worship, through to the question. So we would be currently, we intend to maintain the same buffer that we have with our current practice. So we would not be increasing the number of people that are permitted to have scheduled leave. We would still maintain the 2-person buffer for unscheduled leave with respect to that. Speaking to the comment there, we are seeing some increase in a bit of a longer term leave with our members who are, it may be challenging for us to operate with a missing staff here and there, it's encouraging to see our members taking responsibility for their personal health and taking the actions necessary to look after that. So we do have some challenges when it comes to there to ensure that we've got the staffing levels at it. Unfortunately, it's not something we can really plan for in that aspect. So when we do say that we don't anticipate a financial, an increase in the financial impact, it is due to that fact that the buffer is not changing. We're not going to, suddenly only allow one person to be off, like allow 3 off on scheduled leave and only have a buffer of 1. So the unknown is still going to be a factor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you, Chief.
Thank
I
you
wanted
very
to
much.
also say thank you to the department. Of course, August 25th, I had the opportunity to welcome the new recruits, but also so thank you to our current firefighters for what they do for the city. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Anything further before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. So next up, we have Public Works. Public Works and Addition and Renovation Tender Award. 14J.1. Looking for a motion on the floor. Counselor Tate?
I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorizes a $525,000 increase to be funded by the Reserve for Capital Projects for the Public Works addition and renovations, and for that City Council award the tender for the Public Works addition and renovations to Reed and Delay Construction Limited in the amount of $2,171,038, inclusive of HST.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Counselor Schadenberg, discussion or questions of staff? Counselor Tate?
Yes, I would like the city engineer just to comment for the public on how our tenders work, because unfortunately some false information was posted on social media, which made the city and some contractors look devious, which I found very upsetting. So just for the public's benefit, how the tender process works for every contract and project that we do in the city of Woodstock.
Your worship, through the counselor, the city of Woodstock has a procurement policy, which basically outlines how every contract or every purchase or purchase that we make of either services or materials. The actions that we take are basically there's basically determined by the level of cost of the project. The policies there so that we are consistent and transparent in how we do it. So for this project, for most of the projects we do, we put out a public tender, and then we take the prices, obviously, and the lowest, and we award the work to the lowest bidder.
Just through the chair, thank you for that. And I found that appalling that people would even suggest that the city of Woodstock would do something devious with any of our contracts, and it was making some of our suppliers look bad. So I had actually people even asked me, they had no idea how a tender process works. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. And there's nothing from IT today. So also no special committee or advisory task force reports, no notice of motions, as well as no new business that I'm familiar with. No, so that brings us to draft bylaws. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the following bylaw be given a first and second reading, 9706-24, a bylaw to provide for the sale of certain lands owned by the Corporation of the City of Woodstock to 2499364 Ontario Inc.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading, 9706-24. That's it.
Thank you. Last chance. Any questions, concerns with that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. And that is the agenda today. So we are going to start with Counselor Schadenberg, because I think we leave him last too many times. Not on purpose, of course.
I guess two or three things I'd like to mention. The Southgate Center, obviously, they're still in the process of fundraising for not only the building itself, but anything to do with furnishings and stuff as the building gets completed. So they have until September the 6th, though they're running out of time on it, the online auction. And it's through 32auctions.com. So you just have to look at their website and it'll have more information on what's available in that auction. A lot of baseball tickets and baseball stuff on there. The Terry Fox Run, you can donate to the Woodstock site, but Sunday, September 15th is a Terry Fox Run this year, and it'll be in Southside Park. Our registration before 10 a.m. And of course, the walk will start at 10 a.m. And the one that deserves a big pat on the back for this every year is John Versavel. He's has a large crew of volunteers to run this event, but he truly is the main cog in the wheel, as they say. The other thing I want to mention is Sobeys was one of the companies in Canada that was running a lot of promotions to help raise money or raise awareness for Olympic athletes during the Olympic Games itself. And I got a good friend over there named Cindy that works at Sobeys. So she put me in touch with Billiana, who's their store manager. And through that, when they started taking down some of the Damian Warner signage, I, of course, asked very nicely for some of the Damian Warner signage, and now I'll give it to Deb Tate.
I saw you walk in with that. I was wondering what was going on. Thank you. Counselor Merton.
Gosh, we're zigzagging here. Thank you, Mayor Accioni. As I've mentioned, we were at AMO about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. Just an incredibly productive time. So you, Mayor Accioni, and myself were the two representatives from the city of Woodstock. Really powerful sessions, great opportunities to learn. But there's incredible networking opportunities as well at conferences like this. Just the casual opportunity to talk with peers, whether it's in the hallways or over a lunch. But I wanted to give a shout out to Mara Nagy. On the last day of the conference, kind of the last session is something informally called the Bear Pit, which is all of the ministers, all 37 of them, sit and they are open to questions from elected officials in Ontario. And Mara is an elected official in Pickering, and she took the opportunity to ask the question about what's happening with legislation on abuse and harassment of staff by elected officials. And again, for the second year, I think it was Councillor Cook from Kenora asked the question last year. Did she pronounce it Koch? Okay. A standing ovation for the question because we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And so it takes an incredible amount of courage to stand up and ask those questions. But Mara was incredibly articulate in pleading their case, some really unusual behaviors happening in their council. And so again, we look forward to hearing some outcome from the province, which Minister Calandra spoke to, that would be coming, that it's in front of the Provincial Integrity Commissioner at this time. And so we look forward to some results there. So thank you to the city for providing the opportunity to attend AMO. And I guess our next big conference will be in January, February, will be Roma. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's bounce. Counselor Tate.
Just a shout out again to our Parks Department. I think we take for granted when we live here how beautiful our parks are and how many parks we have. And now that we have part of Upper Thames, I'm down there all the time, probably 2 or 3 times a day with the dogs. Looks fantastic. Lots of people using the disc golf, which is good. But one thing that I had happen the other day, and I just noticed there's this group that plays, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week. And I let Mr. Connors know this. So they always chat to me. There's one alderman, then there's some young kids. The one in front of me is walking and he's picking up garbage as he goes. So I text Brian because the garbage was full at the one thing. And then I was like, there's a kid picking up garbage. So after I got in the truck, I went back and talked to the group of them, and he takes a garbage bag every time they play disc golf. and he picks up discarded garbage. Now, there wasn't a lot in the bag, but I thought we have great citizens that live here. So I thanked him and he said, well, we use it. It's free. So he said, I want it to be clean. So mostly it's cigarette butts and beer cans. But I thought that was fantastic. So just a shout out to our citizens here. They do a great job down cleaning up after themselves and they really appreciate the work the parks people have and our facilities. So that was good to see. That's it.
Thank you. Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. The Woodstock Art Gallery Annual Fundraiser Taste of Art is returning on Saturday, September the 21st from 7 to 10. This year's event will feature stations for sampling and tasting from local restaurants, businesses, and craft beverage producers, music, live performances, art installations, and more. This is a 19+ event. Tickets are going fast. They are $65. See the gallery on the website for more details. And as a member of the gallery's advisory board, I'd like to thank the sponsors and all who are participating in this event. The lead sponsor this year is Investment Planning Council, and the media sponsor is Hard FM. And I would like to read an email that I received early this morning. And it's from a citizen who's thanking council and staff. So on behalf of the Wellington Street North residents, I would like to express our appreciation to the city for the excellent work that has been recently accomplished at the intersection of Wellington Street North and Brent Street. Street corners were extended to accommodate wheelchairs, walkers, and strollers. On Monday night, lines were painted for crosswalks and vehicles approaching the intersection. Today, the first day of school, we awoke to find 2 children crossing signs erected, and better yet, a crossing guard who greeted every parent and child as she guided them across our busy street. She is truly an asset, so much so that some residents actually welcomed her to the neighborhood on her first day on the job. It was a joyous morning to finally have someone fill that role after many, many years of asking. Thank you to the members of council and the mayor, the city engineer department, and its employees, as well as the construction crew who worked tirelessly on traffic calming measures to ensure this area was a safety zone for those who make up Northdale School community. We are grateful that you recognize that every child matters. And I want to thank, a big thanks to go to all our staff. The work they do, I know we have had lots of controversial topics throughout this year, and they're always there and available for any of us to ask them questions, and I'm sure there's been many. So I really do send a thanks out to all our staff. Thank you.
Well said. Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
September is a very busy month. I think folks know that. You have many opportunities to get outdoors and walk. There's the Hike for Hospice is coming up. Walk for Parkinson's is also coming up. The Terry Fox Run, as Councillor Schadenberg mentioned. So lots of opportunities to get involved and support our local organizations that are doing great work in our community. Ingamo is launching their first ever Amazing Race fundraiser, which myself and some friends are going to be participating in. It looks like a really fun event. That's October 5th. So you can get your team registered now. We did mention earlier in the presentation that Big Brothers Big Sisters, we have our big night out Halloween bash coming up. I'm only bringing it up again because if you want to save yourself a little bit of money and get an early bird ticket, you need to do it now because that sale ends on the 13th, Friday the 13th. Coincidental, not planned, just happened to be Friday the 13th for a Halloween party. And because we had some folks from the fire department here today, I just wanted to also mention that one of our local firefighters, Rob Bertrand, this is posted to the social media sites of the Woodstock Fire Department. I've also shared it on my own. I went to high school with Rob, and he's a very avid cyclist. And so he is doing the memorial ride to Ottawa for the, they ride from Hamilton to Ottawa. So they've left what's today? Yeah, so Wednesday they've left. They should be arriving tomorrow. And this fundraiser, they go to the Canadian Fallen Firefighters Foundation. That's where the funds go. They're riding to the Canadian Firefighters Memorial, sorry. So they are on their way there, and you can help support Rob's fundraising efforts. He's looking to raise $2,000. He's at 815 right now, so I think there's enough folks here that can help him reach that $2,000 goal and get over it, but surpass that. So you can check out my social media page. It's on my Facebook page, or you can go to the Woodstock Fire Department one as well. Or feel free to email me and I will send you the link so you can make a donation to support Rob.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, Councillor Leatherborough.
Yeah, so next week is the outdoor farm show. I will be spending the week slinging coffee and learning about robotic cows, but I strongly recommend everybody sorry, all things technology. I'll focus on coffee, but I am looking forward to attending that. It is a 3-day event, but I'll be there starting Saturday until next week. And next Wednesday, my little 3-year-old is going in for a day surgery because a month ago she put a bead in her ear. So they say that if you want something done, ask a busy person. So if anybody needs anything else next week, let me know. But I do look forward to coming to the end of that. As a mother of 4, I thought we were well seasoned, but this was a first and she's been fine, but it's been a lot of appointments and it's coming out on Wednesday. So at our next council meeting, which is going to be an evening meeting, September the 19th, Oxford County DART is holding Take Back the Night. So that'll be 5:30 to 8:30. So we'll be in council chambers, but it'll be happening in Museum Square. Really important event. It says, join us for an empowering evening dedicated to raising our voices against gender-based violence. Take Back the Night is more than just a march, it's a movement. So I do hope if anyone can attend to come to this event while we all are in council, and then maybe we'll head on over there and jump in the march. So yeah, and back to school. Equally excited about that crossing guard and still seeing a lot of speeders. So I hope people slow down, but I'm really happy that kids are back in school and I hope everyone has a great year ahead.
Thank you. It is certainly a busy time, as a couple of councilors mentioned. September, I think this weekend alone, I've got 7 different events and appointments. So it's, as always, a great place to be. One event that is happening that has not been mentioned is the Malalay Association cultural event. So that's Saturday afternoon. Excited to attend that again. It's I love going and learning about new things. The Parkinson's is 2 o'clock on Sunday. I'm going to give greetings on behalf of City Council. Again, another event enjoy to cover. With the farm show coming, I encourage everybody just to remember the extra load of traffic we're going to see. Give yourself an extra few minutes if you're going somewhere. Please slow down. With school in and the farm show here, it's going to be a little bit busy here. So please keep that in mind while you're driving around the city. Welcome to our teachers back working, and of course, students. I hope you're going to have a fantastic year. I want to say a big thank you to the crosswalk workers. That has got to be a tough job. Especially rain or shine, they're going to be out there and making sure our kids are safe. So please respect them. The Woodstock Navy vets, that wasn't mentioned yet, are doing their first season puck drop next Friday, the 13th. Excited to have hockey season back as a hockey fan myself. And let's see here. What else wasn't mentioned? That's about it, I guess. So take care, everybody. Don't forget, get your tickets, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Taste of Art that's coming up as well. And with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Wismer Van Meer, second by Councillor Schattenberg. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.